Welcome, cadets, to Starfleet Academy, a Star Trek podcast by Phantastic Geek. My name is Matt, and all rise for Admiral Pete. Hello, Pete.
It's permeable, not porous. Get your P's straight. Starfleet Academy, a Star Trek podcast by Phantastic Geek for episode 103. Vitus Reflux comes to you now via Whooping Posse of Dudes.
And news from the fleet for this episode leaves orbit, and we start, Pete, not just with Star Wars, but with one of the greatest villains of Star Wars storytelling.
Yes, the Darth Maul Shadow Lord series had its teaser trailer this week. 10 episodes, April 6th on Disney Plus. Matt, looking forward to that after Bad Batch finished up last spring, dipping back into the CG style animation, and who knows who might turn up during that run.
Pete, moving to Marvel by way of Hollywood. Hollywood loves a story about how complex and deep and thoughtful Hollywood is. And Pete, I'll let you share the news here about Wonder Man, but it knocked my socks off, truly.
Yes, the critical praise coming through hard for Wonder Man. Hollywood loving Hollywood, patting itself on the back. I must say I do like the series, and I think people are going to enjoy it. It's also very, very removed from what we've seen in the past, and that's really kind of the point. But the meta presentation here, I think, is going to be the thing that people really dig into. We will be bringing you our podcast in two parts: the first half and the second half of the 8-episode series. But as they've been on the promotional circuit, Matt, the press junkets, if you will, Andrew Guest, who is the showrunner, he was a consulting producer for Hawkeye, and now says that a season 2 is officially no longer in development.
It boggles my mind how in the Disney Plus era, how Marvel Studios has become so fractured. And I know to a certain degree it's a comics thing. Maybe it's a larger pop culture thing. I mean, Star Trek, it will invariably end with some kind of vague, and the characters continue even though the series does not. I mean, that's probably baked into everything in the Kurtzman era forward, but just, Hawkeye season 1 ends with the mantle being passed, and now we've had nominally Kate Bishop show up in one of the least viewed Marvel Studios movies and in the Marvels, and it's just they're still working their way out of the mess. Some of it is just bad luck. Some of it was COVID/strike. You know my thoughts on COVID is not the fault of the studios. The strike was, all of that. But okay, I would have liked more Hawkeye in some degree. Instead, I think Marvel Studios is going to say, "Oh man, people are so excited about us bringing back, people from 15 years ago into a thing. So I think there still is the idea that they can still do no wrong. Marvel Studios can when, well, we'll see. I mean, look, the Avengers movies are going to do great in the interim. Time will tell with all of this.
Over to DC Studios, Matt, where we were treated to a little bit more of Jason Momoa's Lobo this week, coming to Supergirl this summer, as well as news about the following super movie.
Yeah, great to see more of Lobo. Maybe on a certain level, I was expecting movie Lobo to look slightly less than Jason Momoa, although maybe that was just like, I don't know why I would think that. But we're there opening night for Supergirl. We're there for Supergirl. We're there for Lobo. We're there for whatever. James Gunn will offer up to us, and then add to it that Cleveland will return in the next Superman movie as Metropolis. That's super welcome too, because all that Ohio filming that they did paid off so wonderfully in Superman.
Get them tax incentives, Matt. And additionally, taxing was a piece in the National Review this week titled Star Trek into Irrelevance.
Pete, I'm going to turn lemons into lemonade here when people get upset about the latest iteration of Star Trek, or when people get upset that there's two women on the bridge, one of whom needs glasses, the other of which may be coded as a person of color, since they're played by a person of color. And that's what's upsetting to people. I think that's the right kind of upset for the right kind of people. And I know we're about to dig into a delightful episode of Starfleet Academy here. And as always, if you don't dig a thing that you don't want to watch, don't watch it. But good for the National Review writer having something to write about. Writers can write. Good job there.
Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg using her platform on The View this week to explain that Star Trek has always been quote unquote woke. It should always be, and keeping it in the family here that this show remains true to its vision throughout 60 years, and there are people who watch this who don't get it. It should be noted, Matt, in that National Review piece, the author, I'm not going to name him, goes to great pains to explain that he watched Star Trek Voyager for Jerry Ryan.
And now class is in session.
As his roommates snore, Cadet Darren Ramey records a personal message to his parents on Stardate 868-858.7 in the third week of the fall semester that he's confident he's maintaining the standard they agreed to. Last to bed, first to rise. He throws his glowy earbuds in and jumps a glowy rope while his roommates continue to slumber. But as he leaves the room, he bumps into Genesis, who was up earlier. We then have a montage start to a gym scene here, Matt. We've got our various races, whether they be running or climbing, which Mir wins versus his war college counterparts. Tarima is there in her war college gear for the first time, but Thok reminds Mir to get to the next station there, Romeo, and then explains that the Calica team tryouts are tomorrow. Darum fancies himself a captain. He was on his planet for 4 years. Genesis was on her not planet for 5 years running. Caleb, as Cragg puts it best, he of the medical background, allergic to organized sports before Mir is hit by a war college Vulcan with a ball.
The shape of this episode reveals itself, Pete, towards the end. Not to ruin the chronology here, towards the end, we're going to talk about parent issues and who shall be the captain of the team and so forth. And here they are introduced in the first two scenes. Side note, must check StarTrekShop.com to see if they sell Academy branded sleep masks. But I digress here. With that head hit by the ball here, there's conflict. Caleb and the Academy folks approaching the War College folks. It's almost like, Pete, they put two rival colleges on opposite ends of the same quad. I mean, I know I'm joking. B, we had heavily expected such kind of story fruits to be explored coming off of the first two episodes, but As I said in last week's podcast, some of this stuff might be familiar territory. It's only boring when it's kind of, I don't know, overly familiar. It's relatable when you go, our football team versus your football team. It's
Right.
North versus South. It's, whatever it might be. The traditional rivals, like there's a really comfortable familiarity here that is not arrived at because Pike predates my life and Spock predates my life and Uhura. Now we just get to see the younger adventures of them. They're onto something here. With Caleb smelling the potential of fear that the other side has for conflict. And Genesis thinks this has taken enough time away from whatever the war college folks are feeling inadequate about. Pete, I think there's a metaphor implied there for the gentlemans of the group, but Thok blows the whistle. No one will shed blood without my permission. Again, drill sergeant character, coach character, somewhat familiar, but novelly presented here. Back to class, they go to the all gender locker room. Of course, Pete, they are appropriately clothed, but can I say everybody's looking fit in their appropriate clothing there?
Yes, Darum's scar there is noted, but not the actual reason that it exists. There's some banter before people start getting beamed away. Cut to Reno's classroom where Mir materializes and his towel then falls. All of our other cadets materialize in the atrium in different spots, whether it's the little pond or in the mess area. And then the War College comes on the hollow display to take responsibility for the prank. And Darum declares war, taking us to the title card.
The way this teaser act ended, I have to admit, I was like, not concerned. How do I word this, Pete? I was not saying this is not the Star Trek I believe in and so forth. I was just kind of saying, how does this sort of thing go on in the optimistic Star Trek future? Yes, it's a post burn situation and so forth. To the credit of the story, after the credits, we come into the digital dean narrating an ad or recruitment type ad for the Academy that then, it's maybe again a little bit too much from Stephen Colbert. Love the guy. Think they're overusing him here. But anyhow, we immediately roll into that, from that ad into Thok telling Ake that a prank war is coming. And there's discussion here about shenanigans can go too far and all of that. And I have to say, Pete, I think this is a critical scene, maybe for grumps like me saying, how could they possibly do this in the future? And the answer is, yeah, they kind of do this in the future, and there is some history to it, and there is context for, yes, the best and the brightest of the Academy and the War College and whatnot still being young hotheads and hopefully turning this into a learning experience and bonding and all of that, but still keeping it within the bounds of safety. So critical scene here to thaw my cold heart.
I got to tell you, when I read the synopsis, the preview for this episode about a prank war, I groaned audibly and rolled my eyes. Okay, embedded within Pete's DNA, I hate pranks. I don't find them funny. I don't think they're thoughtful. It's inconsiderate, and I don't like it. And the idea of school authorized pranks, something that was not in my education, and I had a highly fulfilling and memorable education. Um, I find schools who do that to be less than, and I look down my nose at them. That being said, when this advertisement for Starfleet Academy featuring the Digital Dean, giving Starship Troopers vibes came across my screen, now I was really worried about this episode, but they successfully pulled it back, and I find this to be the most complete of the 3 episodes thus far. I've seen some more. Captain Ake watching this in her office, asking Thok if the voiceover is too stupid. So maybe they hear you, Matt. Maybe that's the whole point. Okay. Beyond her concern about the prank war, okay, that they've shenaned once, they'll shenan again. One of several standout lines in this episode. And can we give Gina Yashare's Thok some credit here? Perhaps, if not definitely, the most interesting character on the show. She advises demanding a formal apology from the War College's Commandant Kelrek to nip this in the bud. Ake explaining that she's pro kid stuff because all these kids grew up in the burn, and kid stuff is what they do, all of that. But Thok explains that she chose Starfleet Academy over the War College, right? The militaristic, half Jem'Hadar, half Klingon, picked the more open-minded, more exploratory based Starfleet Academy that in the previous scene had been called by a Vulcan an experiment. Remember, all that was front loaded in the pilot the um, that the Federation and Starfleet had pushed their chips onto the War College because they were in a war footing with everything that happened in the burn. Okay, and now it's time to reach for the ideal again, that they're up and running and those connections are being remade. But she chose Starfleet Academy for 3 reasons. She believes in its mission of peace. She believes in Ake. Okay. The third, that she finds Kelrek odd, his tea fetish and all. This in the first of 2 scenes where it's one thing if Holly Hunter's going to appear barefoot, but what are these things on the tops of her feet? These like mesh, not slipper things.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, she has they're like, I don't, and they go actually underneath her toes, but I only know this because apparently Quentin Tarantino's cousin is like the cinematographer for this episode.
Um, Pete, maybe it is set up for something later on. We're going to be blown away. We're going to be like, and whenever she didn't have the foot necklace on, that's when it was the hollow version of her, or it's going to turn out that the changelings made a copy of her but didn't know to copy the weird footwear, or that. Who knows? Who knows? I know this. I appreciate a bit earlier in the scene the line that Ake has, that they are in the teach them how to fish business, which again I think is supporting. I would agree with you, Pete. I don't. How about this? Chancellor Matt would not be pro prank war here, but again, this idea of teach kids how to deal with it, deal with things in an appropriate way, not come down and say the rules are this, the rules are that, because I say so. Uh, Although I think that is part of an academy education as well. Um, but the scene starting to wrap up as Thok does sound the alarm here. Allowing a single transgression is a weed. Unchecked, it will choke everything. Yes, Pete, we are actually also setting up a plant based solution towards the end. So, again, there's a beautiful symmetry here to the episode that
Yes.
I think is belied by or hidden is probably a better way to put it. The symmetry, which of course you would not know on first view because you don't know the ending, but they're not overly telegraphing it here in a really rewarding way.
Well written. Later in the botany lab, circular classroom, uh, hollow wall environment that we've reused already many times, but is done really well with a cool spinny design to it, in addition to like whatever fountain they've got dripping in that circular area for the redress. They recap what happened with the cadets as Ake is there to take them through the lesson. I like that she is a commandant who also takes the time to teach. Um, Sam putting it best that she took her first bath as a photonic being. Um, a droid hands Ake, though, the rare and highly protected Vitus Reflux. Now, the rarity thing stuck with me, but I think what's brilliant, and we can talk resolution now because you're listening to this having watched the end of the episode, that they're not allowed to weed what is not a flower or a weed, but actually a fungus because it's highly protected and there are rules against it, hence cementing their win. My only, criticism potentially is if that doesn't follow through, right? Like instead they never touch upon it again, or we have like Devolo, the one seems like she's alien or half alien war college cadet being like, in the next couple episodes, yeah, all my clothes I can't get at them because the Vitus reflux is in there and I have to keep saying encouraging things to it in order to get dressed every morning.
I have a good bit of faith after 3 episodes of this series that they won't lose sight of that too quickly, if only because characters that, for example, Tarima, who was not in the first episode, who kind of is nominally written out by the end of the second episode, she's going all the way to War College. Okay, we have a sense it's over there, but back now as I have to confess, Pete, I don't know whether she's a full cast member or recurring, whatever it is, but um, I think
I
they
mean,
have
she's
enough.
on the poster.
Oh, well, there you go. I think they have enough sense. Let me this way. Perhaps here's the simplest solution of all. We're not going to go back to the War College dorms for like the rest of the season, maybe. And if we are, I would expect the fungus is there. But maybe that's just the simplest solution. As we move on to other things, you don't even need to reference it if it's just, oh, they're there getting up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and stepping over the plant, and that's kind of in your mind, but not there for story potential.
Yeah. So continuing on here, the idea that they're going to go with uh, planting this fungus, but Darum doubles down that it is dumb, only to have the Vitus reflux do what it does in imitating his voice to much comedic effect. In fact, Cragg points out that Sam did the research that the War College stole this prank from the 28th century when they transported the entire first year class from the sonic showers to the roof of Alcatraz. Um, Cragg explains it took the faculty half a day to get everyone down in an environment where they have transporters. Just seemed a little bit of a stretch. Maybe say like, oh, and they crashed the transporter after they did it. Like Phantastic Geek says all the time. Usually a line of dialogue is fixed. Caleb calls this legendary. You can see upon rewatch Ake marinating in this because, of course, it was she what did that all the way back in the 28th century as a part lanthanite here. Okay. But again, the teacher, she points out that they've already learned their opponent's lack of imagination. Okay. And she explains how the plants will only bloom at night. um, so they get ready here to make them ready for the mission, if you will, as Genesis asks if everybody is ready for tryouts. Cragg will not pursue violence in any form, so he's chosen exoecology club at the same time. Genesis respects that, but she does not respect that Caleb will not. She swiped his Delta while he was in the shower and signed him up. He does not do school spirit, but she needs to be captain. He fought the Veneri Ral. and asks him to look around as Sam is trying to lick whatever she is for the spores here. And Genesis also asks how the Betazoid president's daughter is, because she gets the vibe that she likes sports, and Caleb agrees he will do whatever she needs him to do if she'll just stop talking.
Now, Pete, back in my day in Star Trek Next Generation, they would have an A story and a B story and maybe a small C story that would work its way through the other two. Oh my goodness, that's kind of what we have here. We have the whole prank war story back to the Calica tryouts, which, whether that's the A story or the B story, neither here nor there. Crag reiterates his decision about peace, want to get that filed away there. Also, the idea that Genesis wants to be captain. Again, it's just good character reiteration, all of that. But now we go back to Laura Thok talking about Calica. It's a team game. It's about your writing your minds, preparing for battle, and so forth. Each team has a mascot. The mascot protects the target, fight to the other side of the field, shoot a target. So again, we're just kind of getting the basics here. Strike hard. Reno notes that there are snazzy uniforms. Of course, they're already in the uniforms. If it's just a way to reintroduce Reno, I will accept that 11 times out of 10. As for the topic of mascots, I guess I didn't fully appreciate, Pete, that they would be dressing up as the mascot, but we have a character ready for that. And Mr. Interruption gets 100 push-ups, which, Pete, that's a lot of push-ups.
The lapwing, which we had noted when we toured the installation they had for Starfleet Academy back in New York Comic Con, like how would that fit in? And here it all works, right? Like you have a school, they're going to compete athletically. They need a mascot. We'd never seen a lapwing before in Star Trek. The Mugato, of course, that fits for the War College, right? And I hope they don't go away either. Interesting that Reno notes the lapwing is mean like a koala, cute like a targ, right? Flipping those around, perhaps. Lappy is his name. And Sam notes that, oh, this will be like a fun game of laser tag, smash. It's not. And then for the second time in this episode, we glimpse the character I am calling Cadet with the orange box fro, that Robert Picardo, who does not appear in this episode, perhaps its only detriment, took great pains to take selfies with before, I guess, they boxed his fro because it looked more Pennywise, like on social media. It definitely looks better, like the kid in play situation going on here. But boy, do you notice it when that cadet appears.
Totally agree. And I always wonder scenes that cross cut between, I guess, two scenes. Maybe that's not the most elegant way to put it, but I always wonder: is it scripted? Is it how does that appear? Even if you intend to do it in the script, do you write the one scene and then say cross cut is such and such? But I do appreciate here, in part because it's interesting enough kind of seeing Calica played. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's very high energy, but I also don't think like it's the the greatest battle ever. It's a fake simulated game and so forth. We know that, the characters know it. So I think it's smart for we the viewers who don't feel the full danger of this game that is not fully dangerous to be going back and forth from release the drones, and we have Genesis and Darum getting their first and getting points added to their lead and so forth, back to some of the the tryouts and so forth. So, Pete, I hesitate to call these two intercut scenes a montage because I think there's a bit more meat to them. But I will say that in the course of this montage, we get reiterated that Caleb hates sports. However, he seems to be doing well at this, particularly when he grabs the drone and punches it. Did no one tell any of these kids, including kind of, feral child of the wilderness, Caleb, that you can't do that. He is disqualified. Um, and then we also get that line there that as Sam is fired at, she's porous or rather permeable, which, oh my goodness, Pete, is also set up for later in the episode. This, as you said, this is a well written, well constructed episode.
It is, Matt. Um, so with the rivalry there between our two captain characters and the whole idea that the game phaser isn't just a prop, that it's set not to stun, not to kill, but to transport into the casualty box for the rest of the round, and then you may rejoin. Caleb showing up late, Reno noting when he does get in the game that Lone Wolf came to play in a line that only Tignataro can deliver. And 1 minute that Thok praises him, the next admonishing him because he gets disqualified by taking down a neuro.
Yeah, it's again, there's a fun and a buoyancy to this entire episode here with the practice baptism by fire having concluded here. Crag and Caleb talk Rokeb blood pie, nice and juicy. Caleb pauses to see Terima in the space gym shooting baskets. Hey, Crag, can you distract? Crag does that to talk to some of the War College folks. He introduces himself, explaining the origin of his name. Kyle's name means Kyle. Um, I also love the terribly lousy Klingon joke. It's a fly in the soup type joke here, except for the gag, and then it needs to be explained. I mean, it's just again, it is. I mean, it's not the funniest scene ever, but that it's not intending to be. If nothing else, the episode is doing a really great job. Maybe not having character moments like Crag saying, "Caleb, you truly are my friend." They are acting that they're showing it, not saying it. The whole, yes, even though I don't want to talk to people and tell stupid jokes, I will do that for my brother in arms, Caleb, and it's a moment for Crag to be funny while not being funny and all that. Again, there's a deftness here, scene after scene, that I think is not, as you said, Pete. It's not in the episode description, one sentence, two sentence summary. It's not in a trailer where you kind of go, "Oh man, is this just going to be dumb prank war? Oh no, towels are falling off." It's got depth.
Karim Dion has talked about how he worked with a voice coach for a year to lower the octave of his normal voice for Crag. And I think that works to the comedic effect here, to playing that up. And again, if you're going to play with these school tropes, right? The gym and the pranks and the the smack talk and everything like that, then it makes sense to, right? We're in the future, that we have a basketball that's kind of like got a see-through quality here, as we have this kind of a heart to heart scene between Caleb and Tarima as she's balling it up. Okay. That he analyzes that, you know, because of the burn, with all the rules and the walls that she faced on Betazoid, that she chose the War College because structure, right? Okay, that maybe our Starfleet Academy afforded too much freedom. Um, and then he notes there, after everything they've been through, this energy they have together. And then we get the first time where her neuro inhibitor beeps, uh, going to red, then back to its normal blue. Chekhov's neuro inhibitor, when this time bomb's ultimately going to go off, and how it will be used plot wise. Um, After which she calls them strangers, and she explains that he needs all the school that he can get before we get a really nice alien resurrection homage.
Well, her with the no look behind the back shot to the basket, which of course in Alien Resurrection, though the shot breaks the frame that is shown to us, breaks the camera frame, the frame of the image. It was done indeed, no look, no special effects. This one, Pete, there was, I think, a little bit of weird momentary motion blur to what probably is a computer generated
I mean,
basketball.
listen, I don't need an actress to be able to make that shot.
You don't need her to do
Uh,
98 takes that take all day and make crew just
yeah,
stand
I
around.
don't. I'm sorry. Like, okay, the storytelling tells me uh, she has been underestimated. That's what it tells me.
I'll tell you this, Pete. Did you notice that it's not just a normal basketball? It is a 3D printed ball from the future, future, which I know are around now, and apparently they have good bounce, although they don't feel the same or whatever. But again, a minor detail, but the fact that somebody said, "Get me one of those 3D printed hollow matrix balls that are out there in our real world today for the future," like there you go. That's simple enough. We get an act break, and then it's day 2 of team tryouts. We have officially the Lapling mascot costume introduced here. Darem and Genesis, they need a tiebreaker for team captain. Time for a side-by-side shootout. It's tied after 6 shots. Darem trash talks Genesis about her family issues, taking away her focus, and he nails not one but 2 of the last shots. I believe he needed to get to 8, and he gets to 9. That's how you know it's the future, Pete. They've moved from 6-7 to 8-9. In the quad, though,
Never.
in the quad, the team is happy. They're holding him up on a chair. Pete, this is not a Jewish wedding, okay? They're raising him as though it is the captain's chair, for he's the captain of the team. Not Genesis, though. She is sad. The Those that don't like Calica, the anti-sports kids like Caleb, are similarly kind of you know, uh, unenthusiastic as well. But then we have a faux video of how terrible Academy folks are. Video made by the War College. Darum is ready to throw down. Caleb holds him back, Pete. It's, again, on the one hand, we've seen this scene a zillion times, but here it is. It is not Caleb who is ready to fight. Caleb, who is a bit more mature, and Darum, who has the sensitivity to it, and who needs to show his leadership through action and so forth. Not an overwritten scene yet again. We have action. We have not telling. Again, it's doing everything it needs to do and then some.
If you're gonna do the Starship Troopers advertisement, right? That we've already tipped that. Is this a bit too much? Then you need to mock it. And the best use of mocking it is having the competition do it here with the footage of them screwing up through the Calica tryouts. Okay. But we go to Kelrick's eyeball here, Matt, into his locked office with the retinal biometrics. Um, I might be mistaken, but I think this is yet another redress of the circular set.
Oh,
I can't imagine they built out his office as an additional set, and definitely not the office you'd want if you had to pick between the two. This with his weird tea fetish fully on display. He's got the tea vault, talking about the proper tools, the fresh, dried leaves. Matt, this guy is as lifeless as a military commandant can be. Um, and yeah, it's all on display here for Ake.
you may well be right that this is another round room set redress. If so, A, it didn't register with me until you said it. B, good use of using the AR wall, what I'm assuming is still the AR wall, good use of just setting it as gray wall, whether it's supposed to be steel
Yep.
or cloth or whatever, as opposed to, look, it's overly animated and look, he's got a great view because frankly, I mean, the set is reflecting the character in that it's kind of a boring room. It's kind of museum quality in terms of here's a this and here's a that. It's very kind of sparse, Spartan. I mean, again, the good use to say, hey, AR wall programmer person, make it boring, make it look like this, piece of metal or piece of cloth and so forth. Um, Let me ask you this, Pete. Did you clock his on first view? Did you clock his retinal scan entrance thing as a bit of story business for later, or did it just come off as the security guy has extra layers of security?
No, it was characterization, right? Like the militaristic academy needed this level of encryption into his office. Who knows what tests, what their version of, I mean, come on, if there's no Kobayashi Maru in season 1, I'd have to cite that as a failure.
Ooh. Um.
They get a
Regardless.
failing grade, Matt, if they do
Uh
not
oh.
in some way incorporate the most famous test academically as well of character in this first season,
That could be um, a fun finale. Episode 8, episode 9, episode
right?
10 kind of bit of
And what it
business.
is in the wake of the burn and the most famous taking of it all, right? That you cheated, that you changed conditions of the test in order to uh, do it. We've since seen the taking of that test in the Kelvin timeline, um, but you like there's so many possibilities in terms of the storytelling with it, right? Like, okay, again, post burn, the idea that you have different details in the test, right? Where we don't even know if there's a neutral zone anymore for crying out loud. Okay, that the Klingons may no longer be the antagonist of it. This obviously pre-Worf, pre-Crag as a cadet, et cetera, et cetera. Like, what's the evolution of it look like, and what's the response? And yeah, I completely think season 1 finale, maybe even a cliffhanger, Matt. Okay, whoever has emerged to be the person in the captain's chair, and not for nothing, again, it's baked into the conceit of the show. You put the whole cast on the bridge to take the test, right? It's a test of all of them. Okay, what are your orders, Captain? What are your orders? To be continued.
Well, continuing with the dramatic thrust of this scene, we have Ake noting that the War College kids who hacked the academy system must have needed an instructor's help, given the layers of security and so forth. Kelrek offers not apologies. And I have to say, Pete, he could be presented as a militaristic buffoon that lacks nuance and so forth. But this next line is a good one and a critical one. He wants both sets of students to know that they need to be ready for life and war to happen out of nowhere. That is not a nothing point there.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the sunny Star Trek future I want to live in, but every era of Star Trek has also had a bunch of happy people going, "Oh, I'm happy to be the botanist, and I make cookies when I go back. Wait, it's the Borg, it's the Klingons, it's the whatever the latest terrible thing is." The
You've got to anticipate 100%, but we can't lose the perspective of the aspirational, right? Of the ideal, that there are rules at the same time. And there are definitely rules in education. There are lines that don't get breached. That's why, longtime listeners may know, Matt and I are teachers professionally. This is not our full time gig, and just another reason that I look down my nose at these pranks. I've instructed students for years when I start to hear rumblings of a senior prank. Hey guys, here let me give you one for free. Okay? You know what? Here's your prank. You guys all circle a day late in the spring, and every single senior shows up to school that day. You communicate through your various channels, hey, everybody show up that day. You would have the administration in a tizzy. Uh, the vibrations that that would create. Oh my God, every kid in the senior class is here today. What are they planning? You don't even need to execute anything. Okay. Sometimes conformity can be chaos.
And as you say, Pete, it all an issue of fairness here, and that is Ake's point that Kelrick has put his thumb on the scale here. Her recommendation: let's end this before the oversight committee comes. Let us practice showing empathy. Kelrick says no. That means it's game on. We see that the kids are coming up with a plan as Caleb and Darum uh, all are trying to figure out how to defeat the War College. Who's with Darum? And the group is actually slow to hop on to action. As for Genesis, she says it's a bad captain who sends the team into a slaughter. Good luck with that, Captain Darum. Again, another good line, another good point. Pete, take us to the atrium at night.
I do have to fault them. This is the weakest part of the story for one major reason, for one, you know, critical reason, and then less so for a practical. The idea that, okay, yeah, no, 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 sorry, the atrium is closed for cleaning, so all right, you reprogram the dots or whatever to keep people out, but that you're going to essentially close the super functional quad, right? They eat there, they study there. Matt and I have since gotten our hands on the blueprints for this set, which is tremendous and detailed and outlines all the different multi functional and purpose areas in this massive soundstage space. But then that we got to dip into Matt's maybe most unsung motion picture of 2025 and make this look like a low rent version of Tron Ares.
Um, all I know is this: I, it being the biggest, most expensive, perhaps most expensive set in the history of Star Trek. Not a huge beef that they are using it here as a makeshift Calica court. I mean, to be fair, they're not even saying it's actually a Calica court. The story is clear that it's the atrium and so forth. They agree upon the rules. Darum so charitably. It's almost like he doesn't know that he's in the midst of his own story arc for this episode. The offensive plan is him. They won't expect him being the one to do all the everythings.
It's so arrogant, my God. And again, the characterization, right? Like that big man on campus trope, stereotype would completely happen. Okay. It's the quarterback saying, okay, QB sneak on three. That's my big plan. Okay. Total ego driven nightmare.
And I appreciate that with the 1, 2, 3 go and with the Lapling versus Mugato and the line blow my horn, which I'm assuming Pete is a reference to trumpets playing and the biblical story of Jericho, etc. Um, I appreciate that Darum and Genesis are early outs, and pretty quickly, game one goes to the War College. Maybe the only slam I have for this scene in general is that we are not kind of told it's the best. And if we are, Pete, I'm sure you'll correct me, but we're not told it's the best what, four of, right? It's the first one to win four games, I guess. Right? Yes, it would be the first one to win four games is the winning one. So we don't really have a sense of momentum initially, but maybe Pete, that's because our academy kids are the early outs and lose game one so quickly. Caleb is a standout as Darum flounders, and Pete, they don't waste a lot of story time here. Quickly, War College is up 3 games to none. And Darren's strategy was listen to the captain, and he punches a War College guy. That's a foul. Now we have Genesis offering up a real plan, noting those metal boxes. And I'm like, I don't. I'm sorry, I don't know what they are. I'm watching very carefully. Then we're told they're replicators. She shoots them. That adds smoke to the field. The Lapling approaches the War
Wouldn't you
College.
just say replicator, replicate smoke?
Um,
The phasers are set to transport, so story foul, right? My phaser does what I write it to do, but not what I've told you it does.
um, I have to admit, Pete, I was having so much fun in this portion that
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
which I have to say, Pete, more as a general observation of storytelling, not in this particular moment. I think that when the story and the audience are rowing in the same direction, particularly if you are having fun, as opposed to like a ultra dramatic scene of death and so forth. Um, it's easier just to forgive those things because it's like the story wants us to have fun. I'm having fun. None of this is ultra high stakes. Um, it's just a storytelling tip there. But with all this smoke on the field, it is in fact not the Lapling. It's Sam in disguise who can take the shots at her, which yeah, I quibble with a little bit. It was baked in earlier. I mean, it's a little kind of, Star Trek Next Generation. Let's send Data on every away mission because he can like do everything you ever need to do. I guess Sam is kind of in this case, that is the role Sam is playing. And Pete,
Is it dirty pool to have a photonic on the team? Wouldn't that, I mean, she can't change what she is, right? And you can't discriminate and not allow her. That's the nature of your being. Wouldn't you say, like, okay, though the transport beams go through you, if your field is breached, you are also out. Like, she's incapable of being struck and out.
yeah, yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say it's let me put it this way. It's similar. It's like if there is a Starfleet swim test, but you are a creature who can breathe underwater, then it's not much of a test, and maybe the it's up to the assessment, or in this case, the assessment of the rules of this game to kind of be adaptive to fit the spirit of it. Um, how about this way, Pete? I think it is slightly story dirty pool. I don't blame the fact that Sam is a photonic being, Pete. All beings corporeal and photonic are welcome here. It's it's a slightly cheap use of her, I'll say, powers, her unique species characteristics. It's a bit of a story bending, not story abuse. Um, However, Pete, the War College does say this was a this was an example of a good strategy because at its core it was replacing Darum, which is we see is true. Genesis is happy that she has broke up the shutout here. Um, with that, Thok and Reno arrive angry. Well, at least Thok is angry. Reno is off to do some paperwork, which I think is another example of smart writing, kind of writing structure in this episode, because we don't need to see them come back to win. I don't really think that Academy is going to come back and win. We don't need to see them finally lose the next game and lose
Right.
4-1 because we've 3-1 and 4-1, are we see where things are headed. So yes, it is time to have the adults come in, rah 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 rah, and to move on to the next scene.
What in the sweet name of Quonos indeed here? But cut to Ake in what better be available through StarTrek.com with the Warp Core PJs, Matt. I need them. Okay. Uh, Emphasizing the patience and empathy that she has put them on that path. Okay. Non negotiable. Okay. In her office, this beautiful space. Okay. This academic space, right? The rich woods and the fire, and here the well-worn chair. It does all the things here to dress these kids down. And in the visuals, it tells them, I have this life and this experience. I know more than you guys do. You need to listen to me as I make my points.
Pete, I don't mean to carry the water of shop.startrek.com because anytime they want to give us
They are
gold
not
press
a
latinum,
sponsor. We are not compensated. Okay.
I will say the
Yet.
amount the amount of specifically Starfleet Academy, the show stuff, is considerable. A lot of it is maybe not necessarily my taste, but it is very like in the line of college sweatshirt t-shirt kind of stuff in a really cool way. I don't see the jammies there as of yet, but I will say I am pleasantly surprised that if you just want an Academy logo t-shirt, they have that there. If you want to have a t-shirt that's a slightly cooler, SA logo engineering division at the bottom or science division, like there's some cool stuff here. Again, not all of it my taste, but definitely like um good. So kudos to them. Kudos to them. Marketing, marketing, marketing. Can't wait for the scrap the toy to show up at some point. Um, but in the interim, we have, of course, reiterated here not only the punishment of extra work hours. Um, we see the cadets have the fungus is whispered at by anonymous worker going by. Genesis says it's time to prank the War College so hard, and they're going to prank them so hard with patience and empathy. Um, and then, Pete, just in case you thought Darum was nothing but QB sneak number one here, he takes his broken pad to Reno because it's not receiving replies from mom and dad. Pete, they're not answering his messages,
Mm-mm.
which is our nominal frame device. I didn't think I was supposed to feel bad for this blockheaded, arrogant guy, but here we are at the midpoint, and I'm feeling bad for him. Mom and dad aren't calling him back.
Subversion of expectation has, for the wrong people, become a dirty phrase, right? Um, but here, the one who is so goal oriented. Look, mom and dad, look what a good job I'm doing, that I'm burning the candle at both ends, just like we agreed. Okay. That they can't even give him the time of day, right? That he is broken in a way that we should both expect and be surprised to learn. And of all the characters to rope in here, that being Reno, right? Who the sarcastic, the wry, but with the heart of gold, right? Much like Ake, dates back even further, is technically older than Ake, having come from, before the original series, what with Discovery's initial setting, and now catching up all these years later in the 32nd century. Um, but it's the same old story, right? It's the A plus overachiever whose parents are emotionally abusive.
I think in the back of my head, I had occasionally wondered in these three episodes why Reno kept showing up outside of the her role as a classroom instructor, and I hadn't particularly cared one way or another. But the story answers it here. Later in this scene, Thok checks in regarding Reno's dinner plans, their dinner together. They work out the particulars with the food options available and so forth. And we're told
Turducken
that
for the replicator.
no, thank you. And Thok is the reason that Reno left a starship on the edge of creation. These connections matter. And it's like, oh, again, I didn't particularly stop and think um, why Tig Notaro, famous outside of Star Trek, who has enjoyed her Star Trek experience, who has been friends with Alex Kurtzman since their early days in Hollywood as assistants,
Yep.
PAs, something like that.
Yes. Yes.
Um, that she would be offered another job here, and you go, oh, there's the crossover from Discovery. All these things kind of were exterior to the story. I love that Reno has found love. Reno, widowed during the Klingon War prior to her on-screen introduction in season 2 of
Yep.
Discovery. It's just it checks boxes I didn't know existed, and it's a lovely moment for Reno, a lovely moment for Thok, and just more Star Trek goodness.
Yes, it is, and I really appreciate the pairing here of these two performers. Um, Interesting that Reno is cast in the relationship, uh, you know, the way she is. All right, we'll go out to dinner, whatever you want. Um, and of course, the writing that Thok wants Bokovan.
Meanwhile, Genesis is leading the revenge mission. There's going to be no violence, Crag, so you can join us. And Darren would like to join too. He talks again, some character development here. He played a Bajoran string instrument. He practiced till his fingers bled. And at the concert, he made one mistake, and with that, his parents got up and left mid concert. Genesis and Darum, wait a minute, Pete, both have parental issues. He used hers against her, and he should have been more empathetic. Pete, is that why some of those people are upset about this show? Because it's about showing empathy for others? Now it makes sense. Anyhow, Darum is welcomed into the group, and let's begin our revenge here. Again, we have another kind of narration montage or narration of plans, the planning of plans while executed across montage. Dorms are secured during the day. To get in, they'll need clearance. The Mugato mascot costume is the way to go, with Caleb in it. We see him doing that. He sneaks into Kelrek's office, or at least outside of it. They're going to need a copy of Kelrek's eyeball. Darum sees Kelrek in the outside quad, hugging him culturally. It's a cultural way to say, I'm sorry, and just to keep holding you, and so forth. He gets the polymer DNA imprint. That's handed off to Crag. I'll say, Pete, minor quibble here. They do the DNA polymer imprint handoff like in a way where it's like Ocean's 11 with the key code or whatever.
Yeah,
You're passing your friend and just going, "Oh, here's the info you wanted." But again, we are having fun here. You can do these things where you just go, "We're having fun to have fun." Crag uses the DNA to make the eyeball. Caleb has used that to scan to
the
get in.
the prop though,
Well, like the dangly,
dangling.
yeah, yeah, as one
Ugh,
does.
ugh, ugh.
Um, and he shuts off the grid for 60 seconds. That allows Sam her go time. She's able to use her photonic essence to be able to zip from room to room, from doorway to doorway, spraying the spores. She'll be in and out. Um, the whole plan is almost executed perfectly. Caleb about to run out. Tarima sees him, wants to talk to him. Here, Pete, for as much as I took in the last episode, there, particularly Caleb's performance to task, here they are magnetic as they reflect on their choices. She shows care and empathy. That neuroinhibitor turns red. He pretends not to care, but he likes being part of a group, she senses. It's so heartfelt. They move in for a kiss. I was ready for that kissing scene, but instead, she's got him. She's reached over to sound the alarm. Then they smooch, which I think is a good little moment there. And it's time to run. And we see Darren and Caleb working together. Pete, it's all coming together here.
There was a knowing glance when he was in the Mugado costume that he couldn't be viewed before, and they're all, "Hey, it's Mugato," right? That they would uh, have that, and that, oh, I could sense you beneath there, right? Like that works. And again, the explanation of it, that's when you have to tell beyond the showing. Again, good writing. They're doing that. They're getting the kids to and giving them these good moments. We have the um, War College Hollow Minder, where we've seen the Starfleet Academy one, telling them here, no running in the halls, um, and catching up with Darren here so that they can push play on the plan that, all right, a little much on the CG with the vines, maybe dial that back, given that you had such a great um, practical Vitus Reflux, right? That was some kind of Muppet in the earlier scene. I get the practicality of it. I understand you're not going to fit this entire. This isn't a set. This is someplace they're filming practically in Toronto. They've not built this War College area. They're in somebody's office building with the glass and everything that they're doing this, that they've dressed as a set. But Stranger Things does it practically, man. Like there's a way to do it.
I know this. It again, it might be another thing that is slightly over the top in this episode where we are having fun with it. I like that Kyle seems bemused by it all. I didn't know we would be adding
Kyle.
adding to the roster of interesting characters. Kyle from the War College. Um, we have all this chaos. They run out from their side. The Academy kids are in the quad, ready to see the chaos. Um, Here, Pete, we get the reiteration, confirmation, part two, etc., that this fungus is a protected species. So there's no just randomly pulling it out. You'll have
It's a
to.
crime
There you go. Yeah,
to to cast the military in a way that if they do a thing, right, that they remediate this, that they're breaking the law. And to have the exploratory academy be the ones to figure this out. Okay, having pulled a prank in her time.
and Kelrek giving that victory to the Academy. He appreciates what has been learned, which again, I think, though you and I both are not thrilled with the idea of pranks, not a it's not that we're not thrilled with the idea of a prank episode well
I'll tell you
constructed.
what. Here was a good one. You ready for a good one?
Sure.
Okay, the best one I've ever heard of. Okay, and again, it would never happen today. And all the dumb ones, right? Putting manure in the assistant principal's parking spot, or uh, a flash mob that results in people being trampled, or a slip and slide through an area where somebody gets hurt, those kind of stupid lowbrow things. Best one I ever heard, entire contents of a classroom placed on a roof.
That's
Nobody
not
got
bad.
hurt. Nobody got hurt, right? Okay. Um, it's it's the how did you accomplish that nature of it, right? The astounding, not the destructive. Like you read about, you see these, oh yeah, in a school where they have it as a tradition, they took it too far, and animals were let go that defecated everywhere, or it's the same reason I hate food fights. Like, you empower kids. Oh, you can do a food fight in your own backyard. You yourself can buy food there. You can use your own food and do that. No, man, you can't get any clout. Even with cell phones, you can't get any clout from having a food fight in your own home. You have to do it uh, at school, and in a destructive way, and circumventing corporal punishment because you can't make the food fighters to clean it up. Adults have to clean up kids' messes. Another reason it's just dumb, and you're not original.
Well, Pete, sounds like you figured it all out, just as Caleb has figured it all out. Later, talking with Ake, and side note, I do like that though we've seen the two characters in moments of some conflict or some disrespect since reaching Starfleet Academy, I like that there's kind of this, you know, after hours, they can talk and commiserate and so forth. But Caleb has figured it out. Ake was one of the cadets who transported first years to Alcatraz all those years ago. She was dropping hints the entire time, and they figured it out regarding this whole plant plan. It's about, or I guess technically a fungus, not a plant. There you go. Scientifically accurate on our Star Trek podcast. It's about disarming your opponent, not ruling through fear. Caleb asks for a friend about choosing a life of fear, and Ake notes that not all opponents are enemies. The goal here is to lift each other up. Pete, it's a Star Trek message, well delivered and well appreciated.
It is. Thok comes in here. It was she who gave Ake the idea, what with all the plant analogies there, um, and to push that forward and help the kids, right? Not do it for them, teach them to fish, allow them to do the fishing on their own. Um, and then again with the trope, you'd figure the old Letterman jacket thing would be played, but to have this done against the narration of Darum to his folks here, as he is not the captain, and to get these really snazzy leather Letterman jackets. They just continue to crush it in the wardrobe department across these Toronto based productions.
Red alert. All hands stand to battle stations.
Pete, we have a tactical analysis of this week's threats. Let's start with the weight of expectations.
Yeah, that both Darum and Genesis, uh, coming from privilege, uh, she, the daughter of a Starfleet admiral, don't know which yet. Imagine that's going to materialize throughout the season. Um, but interesting Darum's approach, right? That you're going to burn the candle at both ends, and that's going to make you an achiever when we all know you're not going to be rested, you're not going to be ready, you're going to burn out.
Yeah, and I like that we can have him reach a point of resolution and understanding in the course of one episode. Again, maybe it's lessons learned from Strange New Worlds that some things truly can be episodic and some things can be across an entire season, some things can be a shorter term and so forth. And of course, Pete, another threat in this episode is that of the War College, which, as I've said before, it might appear to be low hanging fruit, but boy, it works in this episode, and it works. Like, it's not that the War College are, uh, they're not kind of the villains in this episode as much as they are that opposing force through which our most beloved characters can learn lessons.
I do want to see some team building with them. I think that is in the Star Trek spirit, but first to be cast adversarially makes so much sense with the practicality of the state of their universe now, right? All these threats that we've got to have a strong military, Matt, right? But it's going to be the optimism and the scientific approach that's going to build those bridges ultimately.
A bridge builder is Commander Kelrek, who, for all his threat that he does give, much of it off screen in the first half of the episode, I do appreciate that he's the one to declare the prank war kind of at a conclusion. Lesson one, his students bested and so forth, but still, he was a baddie for this episode.
Yeah, and the tea fetish need more of that, and um, it speaks again to the character, that the nature of control.
Let's use our long range sensors to scan for some theories. And Pete, we're talking about Commander Kelrek and the War College. I think, in a certain sense, we can only look as far ahead in this series as the two seasons that have been ordered. And that second season order, I think, came obviously pretty quickly before ratings for the first. So there's a certain degree where it's a 20 episode arc, or we can think that far. Do you think, in the course of these first two seasons, do we see the War College folded into the Academy? Do we get some sort of story business there where the two schools now need to join up as one, that sort of thing?
Um, I'm not sure, only because for as big a point that it's been made that we in previous iterations of Star Trek, there could be no conflict between characters. Well, story's driven by conflict, right? Okay, that it's the engine that makes every plot go. That you need it. That it's so vital to have, and I just think they're too fitting a foil right now. I mean, maybe it's a longer first season arc that we can ultimately resolve, but it just works on too many levels.
I I really like that answer because it's recognizing that the War College is in the story in the first place to provide conflict, not to provide some sort of future historical context or mop up from the burn. I mean, those are all reasons that support its presence, but they're there on the same campus so that we can have conflict. So why take away that conflict? What theories do you have?
So Darum's parents, the build up here, we have to see them, right? There's got to be, it's again too much of a storytelling possibility that we don't have a um, open house at some point. Darum's parents, Genesis's father. Okay, it's a way to inform backstory of the pacifism of Crag. What does a photonics family tree look like, especially so early in her existence? And the protagonist, right, of Caleb, his tender situation. Like we're on a countdown to parent visiting day, as it were, Matt.
I really like that as an idea, and I think, in a certain sense, for as much as the first episode was the pilot for the series, and or the pilot of the setup, and the second episode was the first regular episode, so kind of a pilot of sorts. This was kind of the episode where I said, "Oh, we are doing high school slash college stories, or we're using those elements in terms of trying out for the team, or those different things, those as kind of building blocks for a larger story. So yeah, I think the idea of parent visiting day, not only is it fun, and not only does it give the characters interesting emotional places to go, which also means we can set up those places ahead of time and we can deal with after effects after the parents leave. But I'll return to a theory of mine from last week, which is I think there's the potential in this show to have fun, almost fan servicey cameos, but in the best sense, because we are so far from most of Star Trek storytelling. You want to have Michael Dorn show up without any makeup at all, or prosthetic makeup, and he is Sam's photonic father. No
Dude,
one's,
I'd so be down for that.
like, there doesn't
That's
need
a
to be an explanation
great
of
way
like,
to bring in alumni.
yeah. And again, if you want to go so far as to get whomever and say, they do say I looked like, I think my example last week was, you want to get George Takei to show up in any role, and they say, you're not the first person to say I look like that Sulu from 1,000 years ago, like, ba and then just do it more than a cheap line. Go, oh, and he's actually the guy who has the right hydrospanner to save the day, or who has an important lesson to tell a young person. Like, whatever it is, use them well. But again, I don't think anybody's going to complain with any of this stuff, or again, you could pick any Star Trek actor that didn't normally have prosthetics, put prosthetics on them, and go, that's the father of Genesis, because look, they have the same thin eyebrow things. Okay, meanwhile, it's whomever that you've plucked along. It's okay for Star Trek to be fun. I think that's early Kurtzman era. Klingon War. Who are we? Picard. I'm too old for anyone to care. I'm gonna die. It's a Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks have, I think, reminded have reminded the Star Trek production that we can have fun along the way too.
You have to, right? Um, Having fun on the way, Matt, is this now recurring bit about specialist Krebs, Talaxian furfly.
Um, yeah. Who would have thought that he would be a source of humor? Now, as soon as I say that, Worf was sometimes used for humor too. So
No,
like,
no, no, no. It's not Frag.
ah,
It's Kreb.
ah,
We've not met, or if we have, they've not been identified. It might be, maybe it's Orange Boxfro Cadet. But there's a specialist Krebs who, in 2 episodes here, the Digital Dean has called out about the behavior of his Talaxian furfly.
my apologies, my apologies. Still getting to know everybody here. Yeah, let that be a fun character who can show up. Um, I will say, for the uh, early training montage, I kind of thought it was like there was such emotion in the Stephen Colbert performance. It was like, I get it from the actor perspective. You want to be like, add extra zhuzh to like 3-0, 3-2, all tied up, and each line reading is going to get a little bit more exciting, which is a little bit different than what you want out of the computer. But fine, he's the digital dean. I don't know. Again, I have some minor quibbles here, but no quibble that we have a Stephen Colbert presence in this and presumably every episode.
Um, so the Venari Raw, Matt, and the Burn, we shared the quote unquote criticism that's been made there that Venari Raw might also be pronounced venereal. Burn is an effect of sometimes the different sexually transmitted diseases, STD being a way that people labeled Star Trek Discovery. So some of the haters have said, "Oh, look, they're validating us that they've named the bad guys venereal."
Um, am I surprised that the people who are either hate watching or looking at stills from it and
right?
being like, "Oh man, let me spend some time crafting my great zinger so I can own the Star Trek. Let me really."
They know the details,
Yeah.
right? Like, yeah, you've stopped watching. How do you know this?
Um
How do you know it?
it's just it's a weird thing to make your clicks over something that you don't like when there's plenty of things out there that you could like.
Yeah.
um, Especially if it is TV. Go watch the TV show that you want. I've never seen a Taylor Sheridan show, and some people are really into it, and I don't know what my um, uh, reluctance is to even dip my toe into a Yellowstone, or I think a lawman or a landman, or my 1876s and my 1920. I don't know what my reluctance is, but I haven't done it. And listen, if you like that show, those shows, if you like his story universe, great. um, if you've never checked it out, go check it out. I don't know. Let me know. It could be good stuff, and I could be completely missing out. But I'm not going to say here. I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh man, Pete, they totally ruined it." When I can't believe that they got rid of George in season 3 because he could be a good guy, or I don't know. Watch your stuff, enjoy your stuff.
Last one from me here. We carry on with the neuro inhibitor, right, for Tarima, and it's a way to further the storytelling there. But the bracelet that Occam gave to Caleb from her still hasn't shown up in some sort of story opportunity.
Um, I was dubious about its importance when we discussed it last week. The very fact, Pete, that you have mentioned it again, even though you're mentioning it by absence, we've been podcasting long enough for me to know that if I go on the record and say, Pete, clearly it was a costuming decision, it was a nice little thing meant to show a moment between two characters or whatever, as soon as I say that, that means next week it's going to be like, and it's actually a psionic memory holder that will talk about her deep trauma or her deep secret, and the this, the that, the other, and the fact that, etc., etc. So I'm not even going to touch it other than to say, hey, everybody, watch out for this bracelet. Pete said it's important, and only at the end of the first season will I officially draw down from the possibility. And even then, it could be a season 2, like last season on Starfleet Academy. Here's my bracelet. Okay, great. And then now it gets turned into the worst thing ever. So stay tuned on the bracelet front. That's what I know. And with that, let's open hailing frequencies.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
To Twitter or X, we go, Pete, where listeners voted the episode in the following way. Did they give it one plant? Planta. That's a Wally reference. I got 0%. Two basketballs, ball lacks bounce. That got 16.7%. Three jackets, earns a team jacket, got 33.3%. How about four soccer/football balls? Goal got 50%. Some replies here on Twitter. First from It's Twitter Not Life at KCLYLE1. Not my favorite episode of Trek, but a fun ride. I'm hoping we get episodes that spotlight each character as well as a return of Tatiana Maslany at some point. The show is still receiving so much hate. I just don't get it. I want a Captain Seven show too, or something in the current timeline. But I also understand the point that the creators are hopefully looking for the next 60 years of audience. If you watch TOS during its original run, I'm
Mhm.
sorry, but that's not you. Personally, I love Ake's bohemian tendencies. It's different. Let's be honest, this is centuries after current Trek. Current quotes. They had the burn and basically the dissolution of Starfleet. Things change, and I'm along for the ride. And Occam is my least favorite character so far. Pete, I think it's okay to feel that right now.
It is. But again, it's wise, right? Like, oh man, you go back to the original series. If you were in your 20s, you're in your 80s now, right? Like that audience, they're not your audience anymore. You need youth on your side. You had a little bit of that recruitment go on with the Kelvin movies, right? And who knows who's flaked off there if they were just entering Star Trek with that. Star Trek Discovery brought some new fans. Um, Funny about the legacy stuff and the calls for legacy, the people that, oh yeah, I don't like how they're handling the Picard Next Generation Deep Space Nine thing, but yeah, give me more legacy. Like, wait, what?
Yeah,
um
yeah.
yeah, like this made too much sense. It makes too much sense to set it when you are that there's such openness in the timeline that you can pursue, and the storytelling presents so many options.
To one more tweet here from James is Sagacious, Big Kiln on Twitter. The Little Shop of Horrors solution seems so obvious, but maybe that's because I'm closer to the Chancellor's age than the students' ages. Didn't expect to see the war college rivalry stir up so quickly. What's for dinner is still the final frontier. Pete, I
It
would like to
is.
say James, ever young at heart here. I think he's forget chronological age. First of all, let's just talk math here. The Chancellor's age is 420 or whatever. James
I
is
think, yeah,
demonstrably closer to the age of the students than the Chancellor there. So
yes.
James, young at heart, young of mind, young of body, etc. Pete, what feedback do you have?
Over on the Fantastic Geek Reddit, Matt. Kips247 writes in, third episode felt like Star Trek Galaxy High this week. The kids get into a prank war and play space Quidditch. It's very much more a student drama set in Starfleet, but that's fine, as that's what I expected. The kids learn life lessons and build team camaraderie. Not sure I'm the target demographic, and I can see a lot of other fans not feeling the show at all.
I think that one of the weird tonal aspects to episode 102 was kind of the cutting between like here's the diplomatic debate and security and representation and for the Federation Council and blah 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 blah. Meanwhile, like, hey, there's a cute girl. Should I go talk to her? Oh man, is that her brother? Back to the nature of our security field, and we reject your treaty. Hey, I'm gonna go after the girl. With this, if we're gonna be kid centric, which I think is the want of the show. Yes, we have Holly Hunter. Yes, Paul Giamatti reoccurs, but when they're not on screen, it's a show about the young folks. Um, this is the one to do it. Yes, it's prank war meets space Quidditch. Um, I think it worked. It worked. It worked
Mhm.
in illuminating the characters, getting to know the characters better, and I really dig these characters, even though their youthful life path ain't always mine. Pete, to the email inbox we go. We heard from Dustin, who says, I get up at 6:30 a.m. most days, but 5:30 a.m. when Starfleet Academy airs. I'm also happy to report that my 10-year-old is now all in on this series and the early
Nice.
morning watch party. His enjoyment is enough for me to fully back the series. Pete, I wish we had planned these two comments back to back. Indeed, we were going to read the email first, and I just plumb forgot and threw it to you. So not even
Right,
scripted
that
here.
a 10-year-old is taking this in. Remember how, like, mature and adult, like, high school kids were to you when you were 10 years old?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And that these are, more so college age kids. I've not done a deep dive on the ages. I'm sure there's an Andrea Zuckerman amongst this group. One of them is 35. It's closer to like a Joe Carey, right? That was in his 30s playing, a 21 or 22-year-old, on Stranger Things. But that's tremendous that a 10-year-old's drawn it 3 episodes in. And like I said, I think this is the most complete of the three to fully play with the premise in in the episode that I dreaded the most in terms of its expectation. Oh, prank war. Ooh, all the kids with their pranks. I mean, gosh, what could episode 4 be about? Space drugs?
Well, let's finish Dustin's email here. He goes on to say, "Can't agree with the mainstream critics. It's a little uneven, but also pure fun, and I won't criticize any of the choices, even if this isn't aimed squarely at my fandom. Plenty of background nods to keep me fully engaged, and loving the not so subtle jabs at the writing at those trolls who hate watch recent Trek. The
Yeah.
Ake Thok and Thok Reno banter is solid gold. Look forward now to seeing this gang headed to space. All the best from Dustin." Uh,
I'm just blown away that his child is enjoying it, and I hope that continues, and I hope he tells his friends about it. And gosh, how great would that be to have, you know, kids talking about Star Trek?
and I'll just add the current flavor of streaming Star Trek, right? We have Strange New Worlds that is very nostalgia driven, and yes, there's kind of some modern things like, all the character romances and so forth, but it's very like the Spock origin story, you didn't know, the this, the that, that's one flavor. And then we have this flavor. Now, obviously Strange New Worlds is coming to an end. There's still 2 seasons of it while we figure out what the Skydance want to do, and we've obviously set up, Kirk Year One or whatever you want to call it. So we could continue with that, not called Strange Worlds. We could continue with that. And if Academy is going to run, let's say, to a 5th season, my point being, we could get to close to the end of this decade with more story, untold stories of ye olde Enterprise and newfangled stories of kids these days going to the Star Trek Academy. Um, we have the path set here. So, Pete, much like setting the path, we have the trailblazer amongst our midst. Let's now hear from Admiral Fred from the Netherlands.
Hello, Matt and Pete, and all listeners to Phantastic Geek. This is Fred from the Netherlands with a little feedback for Star Trek Starfleet Academy Season 1, Episode 3. Thank you very much, Matt, for your tremendous shout out last week and welcoming me back as feedbacker here. That was a great introduction. In this episode 3, we see something we could fully expect, namely the rivalry between the War College and the Academy, and with Caleb and Terima on opposite sides. I hope it won't become too much testosterone driven, or any other hormones. When I see the opening credits and see the Star Trek typeface, I always have to think about my PhD, my doctorate. When I wrote my thesis, I put the title on the outside and also the titles of the chapters in this Star Trek typeface. Actually, one of my opponents, an American woman, made a compliment about my typefacing during my defense. This is, by the way, 30 years ago, and it was about a molecular genetic theme. The explanation of number 1 about the Kalika sports game was a bit too complex, too long for me. PhD or not. I mean, 2 teams with a target which is protected by a mascot. I mean, that's enough. On the other hand, it was a way to get some fight scenes into a school setting, although ended abruptly and not really finished. On the other hand, what am I complaining? I'm not into too long fight scenes anyhow. I recently went to the cinema and saw Avatar Fire and Ash, 3-hour movie. That had long fighting scenes, too much. Whereas the film further is quite nice and impressive. The way Caleb approached Terima at the baseball court was not the best way, of course, but we have 10 episodes, so that's okay. I wouldn't have expected that Commanders Kelrick and Ake would be on opposite sides, kind of, and helping their students, but that was nice. I really wonder if this will remain a school thing or that they will go on missions and that the War College and the Academy will join or save each other's asses, so that there will be some connection. I fully expect that. That's one of my predictions. If push comes to shove, they will work together. Greetings, all the best, Fred from the Netherlands.
Pete, I was chuckling as we were listening to that. I love that Fred's PhD work involved the use of the Star Trek typeface. How wonderful that endpoint there has a Star Trek connection.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see too, the genetic nature, further information there. But yeah, it's timeless, and I wonder if that opponent, as Fred called it out, identified it as a Star Trek font, or it was just the uniqueness of it.
I agree with Fred. The Calico is very busy. And if you want to say, well, there's layers to it for the purposes of storytelling, because we're not doing, a sports movie per se. So there's added layers to give you added twists and turns for the course of an episode. Okay, but yeah, it definitely is. You go from here to there, and you shoot, and the this and the that. So Fred's wisdom certainly appreciated. Pete, this conversation with Fred, nay, with everyone, is made possible by those who support us on patreon.com/Phantastic Geek, and our ongoing thanks for that support.
Everybody who contributes gets access to exclusive content, all sorts of levels to choose from, but it takes just $1 a month to get you in that door. Can't contribute right now? You can get yourself over to Apple Podcasts, where you can leave us a rating in seconds or a review, all free of charge, which equally assists us.
And Pete, let's keep the pop culture conversation going. How can people be in touch with you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Threads. You can find me on Blue Sky at Peter, Pieterjkalar, Ketelar, 12,600 followers. Can't be wrong.
Well, I'm personally on Twitter as Looking Back Lost. Do me in touch with the podcast. Comment on phantasticgeek.com. Check us out on Twitter, Threads, Gmail, Blue Sky, Instagram. But wait, Pete, there's even more.
Facebook.com/Phantastic Geek, all one word with the PH, like it today. And don't sleep on the Phantastic Geek subreddit. We had a nice push this week. You're joining, don't forget, we have special flair there with the PH.
Pete, looking ahead into the future, looking forward on our pop culture podcast feed, on our Marvel movie podcast feed, talking about the first 4 episodes of Wonder Man. Don't forget, all the episodes hit this Tuesday, the 27th. We will cover the first 4 this upcoming Saturday. Then, of course, back next Star Trek Sunday for the next Academy episode. And then doing it all again the following week with Wonder Man on Saturday and more Academy on Sunday. It is an exciting time to be going back and forth, Star Trek, Marvel, etc. And certainly looking forward to that. And with that, Pete, I will say adios to all our listeners and give you the final word.
Class dismissed.